Hi, I'm Judy Gula with Artistic Artifacts. We're located in Alexandria, Virginia, and we are a Bernina dealer among many, many other things, fabric, paints, mixed media, all that stuff. But today we're just going to focus on Bernina and my favorite feet. In a previous video, we had Leslie talk about her feet that she likes to use, and they were a little more slanted towards garment making. Well, I'm a little more slanted towards art quilts and quilting, so my feet are going to be totally different than hers. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you on the new 770 Plus my feet that I like. So Kyle, come on over and show them this. Now the 770 Quilters Edition Plus has this larger screen. There's some bells and whistles that go with the screen and what comes with the machine. It's got the same width, lots of space, but this is a really big bonus, is this screen. So when you receive your machine, you're gonna have a 1D on your machine, and you're going to have a zigzag stitch plate. So one of the things that this machine allows you to do is it's going to show a 9mm zigzag stitch plate. It's going to tell the machine I have a single needle, and I'm also going to tell it I'm using my 1C, which it shows right here that I'm using. I'm my 1D, sorry, I'm a D. I'm a dual feed, which is, again, a really great feature that I love. So I'm not wild about this 1D foot. What I do like to use in place of the 1D is a 34D. It's clear. You're not looking through metal, you're looking through clear acrylic, and it fits right on and works with that zigzag. So we're going to just, obviously my scrap fabric has been used. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do a wide zigzag. And if you can just see, I can space it out, and I can do it while the machine is running. So that's the other thing that I really like about it, is I can make some adjustments with these knobs. It has a cutter. It's going to cut my thread. It's going to lift my foot. So that's the first thing I do, is I get rid of that 1D. So the next thing, because I am a quilter, is I am going to go to a single stitch. I'm going to tell the machine I'm going to change to a single hole plate. And I use a single hole plate anytime I am working with piecing, because it makes life a lot easier. A zigzag plate has lots of space for the fabric to go down in the end. So we're going here, punch there, tell it we have that. Now I'm going to come back. I'm going to put my, that's my pressure. I'm going to put my 97D on. There's two different 1/4" feet. One is with a guide and one is without a guide. I use the one that does not have a guide. I've engaged my dual feed, and I'm going to tell it 97D, so it knows what it has. Now with a 97D, it's going to also have this guide, so I can have dual duty. These holes are for attachments and additional accessories, and you can use them. I'm not used to this one, so but it actually might be kind of helpful. It slides there and it attaches in. But for right now, I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to leave it in there. So what I like about the 97 dual feed, and this is how we're engaging our dual feed. These feet Here's the another 97D. There's an opening in the back here, and that is for your dual feed, and that is changing the shape of your foot. It's really important to engage that. So what that does is it allows the fabric to stitch without having that little slight bit at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to stitch this. I'm using it have a little bit of a hover stitch. You can hear the dual feed engaged. And I just will actually piece all of my blocks like that. So I have my nice 1/4 inch, gives me a nice flat seam. And I don't have my fabric going down the hole when I start. I do usually use a leader and an ender, which is a little piece of fabric that you're going to stitch on. So when I'm actually piecing, I'll show you. So I just kind of start. This is junk fabric now. We're not doing anything with it. So now I'm coming to my block, or my stitches, or my pieces of fabric that I'm going to use in my quilt, and I'm doing piecing. 1 stitch back, forward, one stitch back, and then I keep going, and I'm going to take my next piece of fabric, 1 stitch, going back, and so that's what's called chaining. And that's how I do my blocks. And so that is what chaining is, okay? And then I would cut them apart and re-stitch more, put them together, whatever you're doing, but that's how I chain it. All right, so that is the 97D. Now there's another 1/4 inch foot that it's called a 57. And of course that one has an edge to it, and let's see, it would have something like this at the side. So these are guides, these pieces on different types of feet. All right, so when I take my straight stitch plate off, I have to tell my machine that I'm now going to a zigzag. So that's really important, because if I try to do a zigzag and I've told the machine I have a single hole, it's going to stop me from doing that, because obviously you can't put a zigzag through a single hole, whereas you have this one coming this way. So what I do with my next foot that I like is a 10D. So this is again a dual feed, because I want to use all of the things that are pluses about using these machines. And I'm going to do a pattern stitch. A lot of times I use these over a seam. So you can see I have a seam, and what I'll do is I'll pick a pattern stitch. So a number 8 is a really good one. I have my guide lined up on my, oh, it says you didn't tell it, you changed your foot. See, okay, so now I love it when it stops me from doing something crazy. It says, okay, now I have told it that I have a 10D, and I'm gonna do this pattern stitch over my seam. So you can see how I've guided my seam. This is great for crazy quilting, pattern quilting, anything. You can also quilt your quilts with pattern stitches. So just don't think that, you know, if we use them, there's lots of things you can do with them. So up here, all right, so that's what, and I use it to line it up. I can also move my stitch position. So I can, if you watch up here, when I move my stitch within the foot, it's telling me I have 5 positions, and that's it. It's not going to let me go any further. I can move it to the left, or I can come back in the middle. So with these pattern stitches and this type of foot, it's allowing you some maneuvering that you can have. All right. Let me try that again, because I forgot to put the dual feed on. All right, so we're here. It's always better with dual feed. All right, so you got your 10, you're doing your crossover stitch. Okay. Now, this one is a 20D. So one of the things that I learned about these feet is not only do you look at the top and see that it's a dual feed, you're also going to look at the bottom. So what this carve out does is lets you stitch and move your foot over thick threads and things. So let's take this off. Engage dual feed. I have a 20D. I'm going to tell it, oops, I'm not going to tell it anything right now. I'm going to tell it 20D. Dual feed is down. And what this is going to allow me to do is if I create, like what if I do a really thick zigzag? I have a lot of fabric, a lot of thread, and what that foot is going to do is it's not going to drag. The foot's not going to drag because I have a lot of thread underneath there because it has the opening at the bottom. See, if you're doing pattern stitches like this, that is going to be really helpful to have that groove in that foot rather than not having any groove at all. Can you see the difference there? So there's the groove. All right, so that is a 20D. Now, my most favorite foot is going to be the Bernina stitch regulator. I'm going to put my single hole stitch plate on it. The Bernina stitch regulator comes with a couple of different feet. So here is actually the regulator part. And I'm gonna go here to put different feet on it. Now it comes with 3. Open, closed, and this larger one. And I like this one. This is the one I use all the time. I don't think I've ever used the others. What?
Go back and do that again. That was a little quick.
Go back and do this again?
Yeah, just...
See, these are poles.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then these 3 are going to go back in here. All right. So this has the same connector as the others have with the shank. And then there's a computer plug that's going to do Bernina stitch regulator. And it's going to know that we have that on it. It's going to tell me to drop my feed dogs. And it's going to come to Bernina BSR, Bernina Stitch Regulator. I use this for all my free motion. It's a lot of fun. And I actually don't use my foot pedal when I do it. Most of the time I just get my foot started. And then I'm on Bernina Stitch Regulator 2. That is activated by me moving my my material. So one is that is moved by power only. So this one is moved and there's adjustments that you can make based on speed, but you do want to stay within the guidelines. Fast is not always better. All right, and I'm turning it off. Now I'm going to try Bernina Stitch Regulator 1, and what that does is it has the machine is under power. I can stop. So if I'm in my corners, it's gonna keep going, and you can see my laser light. You can see the red light that's going. That means my Bernina Stitch Regulator is working. So I find that a lot of these higher end machines have this stitch regulator on it. They start, you can actually put it in a 480, and a lot of people don't try them. I say create a sandwich for a quilt, make it be fabric that has a pattern to it, and then just try to stitch around the flowers or the baseballs or whatever it is that you want to do, and give it a try, because it's really a nice tool that's in there. And you can do a wonderful custom job with these Bernina Stitch Regulators. It does take a little bit of practice, but it should be fun practice, right? So when I disconnect it and I take it out, it's going to tell me I need to put my feed dogs back up, and I'm going to come back here. So in case I don't want to use my Bernina Stitch Regulator, you can always do a lot with a walking foot. Now, if you don't have access to dual feed, a walking foot will help you with creating the keeping your fabrics together. So say you I think walking foot is something that every machine should have. It's gauged to slow and do 3 layers together. So, and it comes with a couple of different feet, and there's some guides. There's a lot of different options to these. But this is a great way to, now I have the single hole stitch plate, so I'm just using single hole, but you can use put your stitch plate there. If you put a zigzag stitch plate on it, then you can do a zigzag, or you can do a pattern stitch, but I just had that, and that's a really great way. You can do some wonderful things with just lines, but don't use your 97, definitely use your walking foot. That will make life a little bit better. So how many feet did I have, Kyle? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. Mm-hmm. All right, so I had the walking foot, which every machine needs a walking foot. You need to have that. The 10D, the 1D we don't like, the 20D, 34D, the single hole stitch plate, and the 97D. So I would have to say those are my favorite feet and the ones that I use the most. So I hope that was helpful. Let us know your comments, etc. on the bottom. And we want to tell you that we do have the Bernina feet online now, and you can purchase them from artisticartifacts.com. Thanks for joining us.